Welcome back, everybody, to the Trial of Champions, brought to you by Elo Hell Esports and Pank One. And we have had a long night of action brought to you. We've had 5-game sets. We've had back and forth action, but finally, it's time for us to have one last series of the night. And Pulse, it's going to be a hell of a series, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So for anyone that's not following along with the bracket so far, this match is going to be the winner semi-final. And since this is a double elim tournament, these are two teams that we'll likely see again later on unless an upset occurs in any of the future matches. So with the winner semi-final between Cratos and Scion Esports, well, we just got off the match with Cratos came out. Cratos finished their match very late, and they ended up taking avoided in a very close 3-2 series. And now it's their turn to come back and try and win this, get further on, but they're taking on Scion Esports.
Exactly. And Scion Esports is a team that has had its fair share of battles, ups and downs, and recently qualifying for contenders in the coming season, now able to give themselves a little bit of a warm-up battle here on the Trial of Champions as they're taking on Cratos, who unfortunately just did miss out on that accomplishment. But nonetheless, they have an opportunity here at Trial of Champions to right those wrongs and show everyone that they deserve to be up in that tier 2 scene, and they're going to be putting their stamp on it if they can take Scion Esports down tonight. But Pulse, I want to point out that both these teams have already played 2 series tonight alone, and in the case of Cratos, both of these prior series against Lunaris and against Avoided respectively have been 5-game series. They've played 10 maps of Overwatch tonight, and they're about to play at least 3 more.
Yeah, and it's like 10 maps of highly competitive Overwatch. It's not
exactly.
It's not like a double scrim block or something like that. It's like you've required your focus for the whole time. These players have been online for like 8+ hours at this point, so it's really a battle of stamina at this point. And it looks like this battle is going to start on Lijiang.
Yes, it will. And here we're going to be taking a peek at the night market with the blue team going to be representing Cratos, the red team going to be representing Scion, and as we just wait for the first heroes to be selected. Now, Pulse, we have mentioned multiple times on the broadcast here, our prior casters Plausible and the big homie himself, Phil. I hope you're getting some sleep right now. But they mentioned that we have no hero bans, no hero pools in this Trial of Champions tournament. So every single hero is on the table. And as I say that, you can see a prime hero that we haven't seen, Owl, come to play in Firewolf and Borkins or Recess.
Yeah, so those 2 heroes have been very strong for anyone following high-level Overwatch as of late. Generally, you've been seeing them paired a lot with Sigmas, but if you've been watching the Trial of Champions so far, there have been quite a few variations on what everyone's been assuming to be meta. Even though Genji's very strong, we've seen a lot of Junkrat, we've seen a little bit more Bastion than I've expected, but this Symmetra, early teleporter out, is going to swap off, so that's not something that I've actually expected from Night Market.
Yeah, you'll usually see the Symmetra take that teleporter and go straight to point with it, but Maximus and Firewolf here going to strike first blood here for the side of Scion Esports, and now with Toxier just going to get a nice melee kill on the Gunther, and Firewolf also joining in the fun there. Taking down Crawley. Going to be a very decisive fight win here, Pulse, as Scion actually wins the fight before they can even cap the point. Will do so now, though, giving themselves the initial percentage in this first series.
Yeah, and with a very interesting comp, too. Like, there have been so many matches of Overwatch where you just see Sim teleport to point, and then you kind of play around point with your double shield with a Doomfist. But not this. This is a Pharah Widow on Nightmare Market, which I haven't really seen in a good year or year and a half at this point. But as this fight starts, Toxier gets picked off by the Sombra in the backline.
Yeah, and that's something we haven't even touched on yet, Paul. Says Default running the Sombra right here, going to be taking out Toxier. Maxwell, the lone Widowmaker left on the map, going to be finding one elimination there with Psy also getting one himself, but Gunther and Default going to be securing this fight here over for the side of Cratos, and now with almost 40% of the point taken, I think it's going to end there. Yep, 40% of the point taken there, and now Cratos has a chance to play defense on the point.
Yeah, and that's a pretty fast swap too. Cratos only letting up about 40%, like you said. But now, after wholesale swaps, this is really Kratos' chance to just start getting back in here. They find the Widow.
And Default playing this Sombra very well. going a little solid snake right there with Borkin. Unfortunately, though, that's going to be 2 members here of Cratos going down, and that's going to leave the advantage on the side of Scion Esports with Micro whipping out that Coalescence, going to be taking down 1, and Default just standing on the side here, being a nuisance to this Orisa Brig combo, who actually does get that Ana boost coming out there. Nano not going to provide too much for the time being, but with walls coming out here, Toxier is going to be able to give his team quite a few sites to help out here. Firewolf and Psy going to be getting some return on that investment, and now as the points do equal out here, we do have Scion back in control.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Scion has taken over. Both these Hammonds have been finding a lot of value, but the Widows have been declining to take these duels, which has been very interesting. They've just been hiding from each other and trying to get shots onto the backlines. But now Firewolf finally has an Orisa supercharger available ready, but they're going to have to be careful about Default's EMP coming online this fight.
Yeah, Default EMP is always going to be something you have to keep an eye out for, and that EMP comes in, only getting 2, but it's both of the tanks here on Scion, and 1 is going to fall. Maximus does go down, but Firewolf is able to get that bongo down in time. The supercharger going to be giving a nice amount of damage amplification here over the Scion as they were able to bunker down and hold out for a little bit, but Micro just coming around the backside with Toxier, going to be taking him out and now giving an opportunity for Kratos to just hold W onto the point, really. And Maximus and Kitty King, though, going to be paying them a lot of damage there to their face, actually, with Psy just rolling forward, holding down left click, taking down 2. A nice little stun here, right click, going to take down Borkin. And just like that, Scion, by the looks of it, are going to be taking Night Market in convincing fashion.
Yeah, the Somber barely gets in their touches, but now it's Psy on the McCree just in a corner, charging high noon, making sure no one can touch, but streaming in, and they just get taken down instantly, 100-43, and a very convincing win to Scion.
Yeah, exactly. And Toxier going to get that nice little shot onto Micro at the end as the Coalescence did come out, not letting Moira having any of that fun there at the end of the map. But that's only 1 round there, Pulse. We do have Control Center coming up here, and you know, I'm not going to be speaking too early, but I'm pretty confident we won't be seeing as many Hammonds this time around.
Yeah, Control Center is a little bit tighter for a Hammond to roll around, but, you know, sometimes it happens. Sometimes you get control of the point. You can just be a giant tetherball in the middle, swinging around. But both teams are going to start in the Symmetra, likely just to teleport in. So it looks like they're going to be running something along the lines of a Genji Reaper, maybe, just because Reaper is a hero that can get in very quickly, and I don't expect these Symmetras to really stick. Yeah, and we see both teams actually swapping over to the exact mirror with this Genji Reaper. They can get in very close. We've seen a lot of Junkrat here today, but not for these 2 teams right now. They just want to play for blades.
Exactly, and that's honestly what Genji does with these recent buffs that he got. He gets those blades so quickly, does so much damage, and he has the ability to cancel out that deflect. Unfortunately, though, we mentioned him, and Psy does get dropped there on camera, even as the deflect does come up. And a quick first fight coming out here, and that's going to be Kratos playing a little bit like we saw Scion starting out Night Market, so maybe a little bit of the turntables turning this time around, but not even giving us a chance to breathe here. They're going to take down Borkin, Pulse.
Yeah, that was an instant lightning blitz. Now Maximus takes down Borkin, but Psy falls to the Diva counterpart on the other team. Now it's just a complete brawl on point as Default and Toxier are trying to find some sort of value in the Reapers, but they're just being zoned out from each other.
Yeah, Default needs to get back in this Coalescence sightline. He will, but Firewolf able to help burst him down very quickly. A pin coming out of nowhere. Maximus taking down Borkin, and that will be a quick turnaround on the point here for Scion Esports. And they're going to be 2 Reinhardts holding Shatter here at this doorway. And I love watching fights at this doorway, Pulse, because there are always a lot of ultimates, and some of them hit, and some of them miss.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, with that speed boost, Scion was able to flip that point because they just caught Kratos off guard, and they kind of forfeit the front. But the Shatter isn't good. The Zarya grab comes out to try and stop the Genji blade, but it's ult chaos.
Yeah, look at that. I was talking about ultimates missing and ultimates not being effective. Well, look at that. We saw 1, 2, 3 being used. Make that 4. Make that ever. Oh my gosh. 5 ultimates being used here by Scion. They're going to need to win this fight with that kind of investment that they throw in there, and they're not going to get it. Default and Crawy both keeping their ultimates in their back pocket here as the point will get flipped over. And my gosh, Scion had such strong ultimate economy right there, and going into this next fight, they're only going to have Switch's Coalescence available.
Yeah, and worth noting, both these teams just, you can see the fatigue in how they're playing. Like, they've been caught off guard with both these pushes. Both teams have been getting aggressive with speed boosts and causing a lot of chaos in fight, but now it's Default's turn to hide around the corner and just go for a Death Blossom.
Oh, the Death Blossom's coming out, and he's trying to make a big play with it. Gets two, going to follow it up with a third on that left click there. Gunther and Micro, though, were starting out the action, so got to give some love to the supports making all this happen. And Default, though, lighting up the kill feed, getting a little bit of screen time for himself, and 65% of the point being taken here. And Pulse of the Diva Bomb gets thrown in, going to be causing a little bit of distraction there for the pin, and that's going to be one elimination. But when the Genji goes down, that basically means you got to hold off and wait for him to come back in the fight.
Yeah, you would have ideally wanted more with that bomb, but at the same time, you get the one kill, you get your team a little bit more time, and it's a very cheap fight win to just get another 20% or so. Now it's Maxwell's turn to find something with this blade and just get in their backline.
Yeah, this is last fight territory here, so if we don't see a win come out from Scion, it's going to be a 1-to-1 score, but that is just theory crafting at this point, ladies and gentlemen, because it looks like Scion's going to wipe the floor here, and rightly so by the side of Cratos, as they do have a little bit of time left. They have a fight or two that they can wait, and maybe they're looking to just build up Ultimate's Pulse and pick Q to win when it comes to that final fight.
Yeah, but you got to be careful because that was a very cheap win from Scion themselves. They didn't really invest anything and now have both tank ults online. They have the Genji Blade, and Toxie will have a Reaper ult at some point before the end of this match. So now that we see Maxwell get started in position with this Genji Blade, but you kind of hear it in the distance, has forced out Reflect, forced out Dash, and isn't in this fight anymore.
Oh, Crawley with a beautiful eat on the Firewolf, and then Firewolf actually dies at his own hand. Disaster strikes for Scion as the Shatter comes in, and with the Genji showing up, Maxwell is just going to play janitorial duty at this point because the blade comes out at the end of the fight, and you know when that happens, it's just going to be an objective secured coming across your screen, ladies and gentlemen. We have a 1-to-1 score here on Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, and that was perfect pressure onto the Zarya from Crawley as well. You saw the whole time just in their face, and you couldn't get Firewolf in a position to drop a big Graviton, which is what they were relying on for most of that fight. So now we're in a position where both maps haven't exactly been the closest. Both of them have been pretty one-sided, and now we're going to Gardens, which in my opinion generally plays a lot closer to Night Market, especially with the compositions that these teams were running on Night Market. Like we saw the Pharaoh, we saw the Hammond. I gotta say, I'm expecting good things from Scion here, and it's gonna be up to Cratos to stop them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, and you know, now it's do or die for this map here as first Battle of Night Market comes out, and we do have an opportunity to see some unique picks here. Default choosing to go with that Tracer, and now Maxwell flexing over to that Sombra with one elimination each going down here. You got to question who's more valuable, that main support or that main tank, and Porkin going to be showing off which one he thinks is more valuable, as we're going to have Cratos recovering from the loss of Gunther and take down Scion Esports for that first fight win.
That was a very decisive fight win too. I've been seeing it more and more frequently where Sims just teleport their entire team onto point, a lot like what people have been doing on Night Market. But you saw they got a little split. They were a little separated, and just one good Lucio boop, one good Hammond slam, and their entire team fell. Now Toxie is trying the same thing, trying to get their team onto point, but the teleporter's down, and they're just huddled up in a corner trying to not get booped and displaced by this Hammond.
Oh man, I'm having comp flashbacks just watching this. The Orisa just bunkered up with their team, but they do break out of that bunker for the time being. Micro trying to help his team, and this minefield just force him into a bad spot, but this Mei is so good at controlling the environment, putting up that wall, but Sai will get dropped right there. So that's a big member to go down for the side of Scion. Kratos, though, trying their best to sustain through the death of Crawley, and now with the back and forth action, you gotta remember that the point is still in control of Kratos, and as the fight continues on and on, Kratos ultimately does win, and they're about to eclipse 50% of the point taken.
And pretty low in ult economy too right now. The only thing online for Scion is that Symmetra wall, which, again, you're playing into a Sombra, one EMP, and it goes poof, so they don't really have anything to work with that they want. Maximus will get online to this Rhine Shatter, but when you're playing into a dive comp and when you're surrounded, you can only really shatter one or two people.
I like the teleporter coming in there, but you gotta watch out for Maxwell with this EMP. He's gonna come in, he's gonna get rid of that Symmetra wall. It's disaster. It's 4 members going to get EMP'd, going to get wiped across the floor. And as we hit 80% on the point pulse, you gotta wonder how much is left in the tank here for Scion. They have the ultimates available, but this is just the most one-sided round we've had so far.
Yeah, the fuel's definitely running on empty for Scion right now. Psy has a Blizzard, Maximus has a Shatter. If they can only build up the last percentage to these ultimates and contest point, but right now it's the D.Va Bomb that might be forcing out pressure and keeping them from touching the point.
Oh, they do get to the point though, and that's big. And Psy actually going to take down Borkin here. So, Scion, they may have found the opening, but ladies and gentlemen, please remember, overtime is ticking, and the longer you delay, the faster it'll go down when time comes. Fortunately, though, for Scion, it looks like they're going to secure this fight win and secure the point again, as they're just trying to do a little tango here with Micro and this Maxwell Sombra, 2 very slippery heroes, but ultimately, by the looks of it, Default actually giving some new life here to the side of
Force the Blizzard!
They get the Blizzard out right there. Default picking off another one, and the beat comes out from Gunther. That's a full commit coming in from Cratos, and now Micro's gonna take down 2. Gunther's gonna take out 2. It's a Portal combat on the turf, and it's all going to come down to Cratos with 100% to 0 win here, taking a 1-0 series lead.
What a last map that too. Like, everything that happened in Legion and Garden was a complete brawl, but Kratos played it perfectly. They prevented Maxwell from getting a good Shatter. They prevented Psy from getting a good Blizzard. And they even sort of baited Psy into thinking that a fight was won so that Blizzard wasn't needed, and were able to form the recontest, getting out their Sombra, getting out their Moira so that they didn't need to wait for those 2 crucial respawns. And even though they didn't need the EMP, like, having a Moira and a Sombra in a fight that would otherwise you would be trying to fight in a 4v6 is almost impossible to win, if not impossible. And they were intelligently able to back out, give them space, and then come back in and shut them down. So now Kratos looking a little bit stronger, even though they just came off of a very draining map right now. And this might be like the rest of the Trial of Champions, just a series of 5 maps that are just going to be very intense and very close the whole time.
And honestly, after seeing that match, that we can talk about how that 3rd round was so one-sided, and I could go on and on about the beauty of watching that go button be hit. When Default gets that 1v1 tracer kill, the Blizzard comes out, and then you see Gunther drop the beat, and all of a sudden it's just Kratos coming in, storming back. It felt a little bit like Gandalf at the coming in from the hill with reinforcements there as Gunther dropped the beat. But as we look forward here, we have Junkertown by the looks of it coming up, and Junkertown, a map that I feel like is very often picked. Definitely one of the more enjoyable escort maps, I think, generally thinking for the community. I mean, there have, not to throw too much shade, but as you can tell by Paris and Horizon no longer being around, not too many of the post-launch maps have gone too well. So Junkertown being prevalent is always a good thing to see, especially, Pulse, when you get to see snipers coming up ever so often on that first point.
Yeah, Junkertown has been played a lot as of late. You see a lot of double sniper. There was a couple things in GGNA for the advanced or the expert divisions that we saw coming out, where it was like Widow, Tracer first point, where Tracer is the better flanker between Tracer and Genji to pick, just because of the types of cover you get. Genji has to commit in an open area, and that's a little bit more dicey for him with no recall. Mm-hmm. But once you get onto second and third points, that's where you'll generally see players that specialize in flanker heroes go to the Genji. There's a lot of verticality. Dragon Blade is just very easy to charge right now. Genji is a very central part to many of these teams' compositions, because you can just build up a Dragon Blade every single fight. You can put out so much damage with the increase in shuriken damage and the reduction in spread as of late. And the Reflect helps you stay up a little bit longer. So teams have been opting to run that a little bit. We've seen plenty of weird stuff just in Trial of Champions today as well. Like, we've seen some Hog come out. We've seen...
I know we saw Bastion earlier.
Yeah, we saw the Bastion earlier, right? And while Bastion's not that weird for Junkertown, like, it's not really a meta for a Bastion to thrive, where Genji's really good and people want to play snipers. So you see very daring angles being taken. You can just kind of play around a Bastion much easier, because you don't have a team that just needs to stand and hold ground on the cart.
To be fair, one of my favorite defenses on Junkertown is that first point close hold where you set up right on the side of the
Yeah,
entrance with
you
your
run like a
Bastion
Ryan
Elysium.
Sigma.
Yeah, you just have double shield. The Bastion just sits
Yeah.
there, and it's just a pain to get out of spawn. And even
There's
though,
like two flavors of it now too, because you have like the double shield bunker on the side, like you're talking
yeah,
about, and then you also have like the London Spitfire thing that they did on Dorado that's like
yes,
kind of found its way into other maps with the Ryan Sigma, and like those are really scary holes to break through if you're just not prepared and not thinking, or if you're like a little tired from a long day.
and I mean, if you think about if the enemy comes out of their spawn and you're sitting there with a Bastion and Bastion just mows down 4 heroes right away. Well, Bastion's sitting at like what 40, 50 ult percent. Second fight comes around, you lose that fight. Well, you know what? The cart doesn't move that far, and then Bastion we could talk about forever as the map eventually starts. I'll be sad that there's no close hold here on defense, but nonetheless,
But
we
we
do
have a
get
soldier.
yeah, we do get some interesting picks here as Soldier, the legs, ends up running out of spawn, ladies and gentlemen, and Maximus going to be pulling out the hog here. So two fun, interesting picks, and personally, I'm excited to see what Maximus can do on this hog.
I think both the tank lines right now are fed up with it and just going Orisa Hog for those halt hooks, easy picks. But honestly, Maxwell on this soldier is a little bit interesting for Junkertown, especially in a map where Widow is so strong. But Default is just camping this corner, waiting for Toxia to pick their head out.
Yeah, not looking to get much damage down, looking to find quality over quantity. Can't land the shots, though, as Default just barely misses out landing the shots onto his Widowmaker counterpart. And if you look over to the battle of the cart, we see a little Hulk coming out there. Krawi going to get himself a little bit of health, and Maxwell getting a little bit of leg stealth action here coming up from behind Toxia, or what? And now all of a sudden Cratos has flipped the map here on Scion, and when you have a soldier that doesn't have to worry about a barrier, it's ridiculously easy to get ultimate charge, to pump damage out, and to just be generally annoying. I mean, look at what Maximus had to deal with, that big flubbery lover boy.
Yeah, exactly. And Maxwell just takes the long flank, shows up, takes out the Widow, and wins the fight because your team doesn't have to worry about peeking anymore. And with that, that's a very quick point A from Kratos. Around 5 minutes left on the clock, and they have enough ultimates to keep this cart rolling. They're not really at an advantage, but they have enough. They have the Baptiste window to keep everyone up if they need to. Gunther is very close on that Zenyatta ult, and Crawley can make some space as necessary. But right now, they're just kind of fishing, and they do find Maximus going on a weird hog flank in the background.
Yeah, Maximus getting a little risque there, but taking a look above you, it's going to be real hard to try and break this hold here. And as we see a supercharger go down, we're going to have a whole hog being used as well alongside the Transcendence, a Dragon Blade. Everyone just hit Q while you're at and just see what happens. Sai getting 2 eliminations there with his blade. Nicely done there for Scion Esports, but Gunther gonna do what all Zenya's dream about doing, and that's last hitting the Dragon Blade and Genji. With the supercharger coming out, Gunther now has an opportunity to show off his Transcendence, gonna be keeping his 2 tanks up, if only for the time being, as Hog does get hooked in and Maximus wins out on that mirror matchup against his counterpart. But the Discord Orb is so strong, and when you're just holding left click into it, you really can just chunk out the tanks.
Yeah, and right now, Sai is lurking in the back, just got the mega health back, going back into their spawn for now while they kind of think about life. But this cart is moving, and Maxwell has finally opted to get off the soldier, maybe realizing that's not the best pick for this map.
Yeah,
but is now pulling out the Genji. It's a really good time to do it too, because the other Genji just reset their ultimate and using it the last fight. But now they do need to worry about Sai on this backline.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Sai getting in there, up in the face of Gunther. Will drop him actually at the hands of a deflect. Those always sting a little extra than your normal shuriken elimination, and especially when default's on this Widowmaker. Stuck in a tight space, that Genji's going to give you something to think about as you sit there and spawn, as Kitty King and Card just going to play cleanup duty here on the remaining members of Kratos and feed over ultimate charge. And Sai looking pretty now as Pulse, he's got 82% on his blade, and I mean, anytime a Genji's got blade, that's always going to be the center of attention any fight.
Yeah, you gotta worry about that blade if you're Kratos. You have to respect it. But on the bright side for Kratos, they got cart all the way to the final box. So while not capping B, one fight and they'll just be able to finish off this point and continue on Junkertown. And now you see Kratos going on this long flank, which I can't really argue with. It's a perfect setup just to get the high ground to deny Side this mega health pack that he's been camping for so long this fight. And you see Maxwell starting to set up on a flank, but he can't really get caught out.
Oh, Sai, speaking of caught out, will catch Maxwell sleeping right there as Maxwell does get dropped. And Sai is going to have that blade up and available, but Gunther just now gets that Transcendence. He's going to use it though, so this fight is going to have to be secured by Kratos, or else this blade can turn things around very quickly here for the defense. But it looks like Sai will be holding on to that ultimate. That will be the second point taken here by Kratos. And now as we move on the third point here, Pulse, there's 3 minutes on the clock, and taking into account the time it takes to move around the big umbrella circling above them, I mean, the best chance they have is what, a minute and a half, I guess, time, as a pause does come through here. And I believe that's an insta pause by the looks of things, as we had a disconnect come in on the side of Kratos.
Yeah, that is going to be the Widow disconnecting. So
Default.
Yeah, it's a scenario where it's very unfortunate, especially with some of these spawns coming through. But at the same time, like when DCs occur, generally you're very worried about what ultimate you're losing, and you're not too worried about losing walls for the most part, because that's not a strong fight winning ult like Dragon Blade, or a strong fight winning ult like we saw Cry how he got a two elims off of a whole hog, which I don't think I've seen in quite a long time.
Yeah,
so it's not a big loss.
Changes. It's not as often with the changes to the pushback, where it pushes back even more. It's hard to get those last hits with the hog unless you force him into a corner and really give him something to think about. But one of the bright things, we mentioned, Default did get dropped, unfortunately, due to a disconnect. He is on Widowmaker. Widowmaker's not one of those heroes that really relies on the ultimate. It amplifies her ability to do her job, but her job doesn't revolve around that ultimate, much like, Maxwell with that Genji. Whereas if he were to disconnect, a different story. So, ultimately, I don't think Kratos will be set back too much by losing progress on their walls, but we'll have to see what they do ultimately when he does get back here. And in the meantime, though, taking a look on the side of Scion, they do have both their DPS ultimates available, so they do have their walls. And, more often than not in this high level of play, walls is usually just a 15-second pause where nobody really does anything, and the victimized team is just going to stand there and not let that Widowmaker get any free shots.
And you were kind of talking about it earlier, where rolling into point C with 3 minutes, for the actual time it takes a cart to round the corner, if you win both fights convincingly, you at best will be down to 2 minutes by then. So it will hurt them a little bit in momentum terms, but as of late, I don't think it will affect their ability to finish Junkertown, because with 3 minutes left, like, it feels like an inevitability. You can make that hold on defense if you play it well, but again, these teams have been playing for so long today that you kind of see some of these mistakes coming out in this last game. But this last game is still the most important one, because if you lose here, then you're going to be in a similar situation tomorrow night, and you definitely don't want to be playing in those conditions.
Yeah, exactly. You don't like to, as a competitor, you don't like to think about, the possibility of losing. Confidence is key in so many situations, but having that cushion of a double elimination can definitely help people alleviate some of that anxiety they may feel, especially when you're playing in the winners bracket still, like both these teams are. You have the ability to go through that losers, but with that double-edged sword, you're going to be seeing some very high quality teams down there at this late stage. I mean, there's not very many losers rounds left to go to get to that losers finals where you reclaim a spot in the grand final. So you've really got to make sure that you're putting your best performance forward in these winners matches. And I mean, not only like I said, does it give you that opportunity to be sitting there in finals waiting already with a spot secured there, I mean, you don't have to worry about the mental exhaustion of playing these 3 matches today, and then you have to play however many matches come tomorrow throughout the losers to get your spot back in the finals.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it does look like Default's power just completely went out. So we will be taking a short break while we wait for that reconnect, and we will keep you updated in the meantime.
Hi everyone, my name is Nekra, and for those of you that don't know me, I lost my mother to pancreatic cancer 2 years ago. While a rare disease, pancreatic cancer remains one of the deadliest forms of cancer due to the nature of finding it so late in a stage of progression. It is possible that someone you know has had a family member, a friend, or even themselves deal with some type of cancer. This week during Trial of Champions, we've partnered with Pancreatic Cancer Canada. You can help us reach a more cancer-free, more hopeful world by donating directly to the foundation in the link in our panels below. Every dollar counts towards reaching a cure for this horrible disease. Thank you so much for listening to my story and for supporting Pancreatic Cancer Canada by tuning into the stream. Now, back to more Overwatch.
Academy, they lay down the shatter, let the bodies hit the floor. Uprising Academy at 95%.
Right now with Hydra building up to this Bear Barrage so quickly.
Oh,
and asking.
Double kill in the back with the pulse bug from the high ground. Aerial assault with that mine.
Impact se escucha de abajo gritar campeón a Sky Foxes.
Holy cow.
And after 42 consecutive losses, the Shanghai Dragons get their first win.
8 teams enter this weekend.
Oh no, Reinhardt, what are you doing?
We got a clip with minimal information, it's time to break it down. Speed, 25%. Go, figure out what this man's SR is.
Keep fighting till it's for sure lost.
Winnable!
Here as we just jump right on the third point with Crawy getting a little too aggressive there behind enemy lines, Pulse, and with the blade coming out here, the Transcendence will get up in time, so Switch able to trade that out with Kratos' blade, and ultimately that's going to be a loss for Kratos' side as their ultimates are in shambles comparatively to Scion's.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, default losing ult isn't a big problem. But because they were down a player, Scion knew it was safe to push in to force out all those ults, and the blade getting out trans honestly was the best thing they could hope for at that time. So now Firewolf can basically dictate this next 2 fights with that supercharger. You already see the tank line forcing out the all of the players from Cratos, and this is another easy fight win for Scion. And if you look at all those check marks, Scion have this on lock for the next minute and a half or so, which is very scary considering there's only 2 minutes left. They have Blade, they have both tank ults, they have everything but Transcendence. I'm not going to list them all, but Maxwell has made the swap over to Ashe now after throwing away that Blade.
Yeah, an interesting swap. They're going to have a lot of pressure on the shields, going to have a lot of pressure over the shields thanks to that dynamite. And now with CYY choosing to hold on to that blade yet again, only Kitty King actually needing to use an ultimate. There's been a lot of patience coming out from both Toxier and Psy, as they both have had that ultimate since our pause about a minute and a half ago in game time. And now it's a Switch almost getting a Transcendence up again. And it's really just nice patience coming in from Scion. Unfortunately, Maximus does get hooked in, so going to have to play a little bit more aggressively to make up for that lost member, and Psy's doing a fantastic job at making sure that is accomplished, getting an elimination down before the Transcendence can be used. Switch following up with the elimination there on the Maxwell. A nice little left click going into the dash after a deflect takes down Gunther. Brawl, we gonna return the favor, and Switch picking up default on the end there. So a lot of trading kills back and forth here, Pulse, and with only 40 seconds left, there has not been much progress at all by Cratos.
But look at Maxwell in the back line. Ends up getting caught out. Is taken by Maxwell. So now it's a solo Orisa playing into a Bongo and a Transcendence. They do find the pick on the Baptiste in the back line. So now this cart is rolling. They're in the position they've set themselves up for since that pause. We have a high ground Ashe that is contested by the Widow and taken out. That's not what you want with 20 seconds left. Default does have sights, but it's only sights as an ultimate. They need to keep this cart rolling.
Toxier cool under pressure, on fire from the dynamite, still manages to land the kill shot there. Very nicely done by the Widowmaker from Scion Esports. Crawley does take down Psy, who, we should mention is in fact on that McCree, swapping over to a Tracer now. But Toxier going to end up losing that duel out to default, but not before he takes down Borkin here. And with Bob getting in on the action, causing a little bit of LOS change here from the defense, it's going to be exactly what they needed, as Cratos picks up multiple eliminations off the back of their Ashe here. Going to be begging her to keep this up, as Maxwell needs to keep the team on their back right now with all the respawns coming in from the defense. And it's not any average heroes we're going to be seeing, Pulse. We're seeing the stall heroes come out. That means Diva, that means Tracer, that means Hammond, and possibly that means a hold here for the side of Scion, as they do have a few members coming back, but Maxwell just lands the headshot there, and that secures an overtime push here for Cratos.
And what an overtime push, too. The whole time, those last 3 minutes, we saw Cratos fighting to get in on that last choke, especially with a team where they're running double hit scan and a hog into a hog Risa, but also a team that had choke advantage, which is very difficult to do. But eventually, off the back of Maximus just kind of walking around in the backline of Cratos, they were able to get that pick, start forcing their way in, and trigger that overtime cart push. So very impressive that they're able to set themselves up for that position. But alas, they do finish Junkertown with 3 points and no time left in the bank. So it's not a complete loss. They have some win conditions now for Scion, but they want to, realistically, you want to win with as much time as possible right now, especially after that hold. You set yourselves up so good for getting, holding at 2 points, holding very deep into second point, but now you're forced to play for all 3 on Junkertown and all 3 with time. And they're not really making any big changes. Toxier is still on that Widow, CYY on a Hanzo now, which is the first time the Archer has made his face shown on Junkertown so far.
Surprisingly, too.
Yeah, and for a map that is such a good double sniper map, Hanzo's kind of one that's fallen off a little bit on Junkertown A, specifically because of Ashe. The Dynamite is a very strong tank pressuring tool. You can run a Mercy with it, but both these teams are opting for Baptiste Zen, so on the attack, this Ashe is not going to have the one-shot potential that some Ashes might on Junkertown.
Well, it's still there. It just requires a little more coordination, because you need to make sure that your Zen's choosing the target that you have in mind, or you're going along with who the Zen discords and shoots them. So not as, easy as, let me just give you a little bit more damage, Ashe, and you can have some fun out there. But nonetheless, Discord's still going to be providing lots of utility there for Gunther and Switch alike. Now, Scion, you know, it feels a little weird here, Pulse. It feels like they've been rather uncontested through most of this first point, and you know, it's not something you expect to see, but Craw, we heard I was complaining and decided to shut me up. A nice hook there, taking down Hanzo, but Maximus deciding to match his counterpart there with a hook and a kill onto Borkin. So with eliminations coming out from both sides, Default evens the battlefield here, and I think we're going to be at a stalemate for the time being.
Yeah, but Borkin falling is huge because that's your Orisa player. Orisa has no way to get back in a fight quickly. It was Psy taking down Maxwell. This is now turned into a 6v4 for the offense. They have a chance to push through this cart and finish, but you need to be careful of Default. Default playing so far back, playing so careful right now to not give them a free Widow advantage.
Oh, and Default just barely misses out, taking his counterpart down. Now missing shots on the Hanzo. Finally does connect, though, with the headshot there, taking down one. And now trying to win that duel out. But around him, the house will crumble. No longer able to be supported by his team. Default is either going to have to get out or find himself on the cart, giving up his life.
Yeah, it looks like CYY is coming back from spawn, but they don't even need the extra person. They won that off the back of early
Borkin?
picks.
Hello, Borkin?
Is Borkin over there in the backline?
See, that's what I thought I was seeing. I mean, Borkin is just living his best life.
Clearly in the backline.
Yeah, Borkin's living his best life there on the backside, and we're just gonna have to consider him a threat to the Zenyatta. Now, when that left click from the Orisa comes in, it is like a whole hog on basic ability cooldown. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Toxier with the stealth coming in with a 2-piece, and even though he's eliminated, he brings down 2 victims with him, and that is what you love to see from your main tank, coming in on the flank.
The flank Orisa wasn't something I thought I'd be talking about tonight, but when it comes out, you gotta appreciate it because it's not something you see every day. Now we finally are in a position with Cratos again, now in control of the defense, but they are still down Borkin, who has been going for some plays, and that's about all I can say for them is that they are in fact plays. But your Ashe is coming online with a Bob now. This is a fight where you can have 3 tanks, have 3 people pressuring shields, as long as you don't see the Widows getting value. But again, it's Maximus to fall first. Firewolf following up with a pick onto Maxwell, and it's all blue in the kill feed.
Yeah, a lot of ultimates being committed here by the side of Kratos. Questionable usage here. As you see, the Bob didn't get much value, didn't even stay on the cart very long, got pushed off of it. And then you're standing here, you see the bunkering coming in here on the inside over on the left, but with Gunther dropping, the whole hog coming out, and whole hogging and Orisa with Fortify is just a death sentence there. And now with maybe a few members of the defense left here, it's going to be just stagger eliminations coming in, possibly some ultimate charge being given over. Crawley with a nice attempt there on the defense, but with 4.5 minutes, Pulse, Scion definitely coming out strong here on their Junkertown offense.
Scion definitely a little bit stronger than Kratos on Junkertown, but I'm of the mindset right now that I think Hog has been out of meta for so long that both teams have forgotten how to play into it a little bit. That along with being a little bit tired from the long day, because both these Hogs are just finding kills where they should not be finding kills. Like, the hooks are good, I will say that, but like, we've been finding a lot of whole hog kills. You see Orisa Hogs just like bunkering in random corners, and now Firewolf drops his bomb to start the fight, and that Dynamite's going to get some big value.
Yeah, and you know, when you play a hog, there's always that element of, you know, the skill of landing that hook and getting an elimination, but then you also have to account for how much of that is a mistake by your counterpart to get hooked like that. As Crawley does take down Firewolf, but Toxier up above, raining down some bullets into the backline by the looks of it of the defense here, as Kratos is going to get dropped one after another. Maximus finding a hook, and then the supercharged flank from Borkin not going to find as successful as a result of last time, but Default doing what he can from his position here to keep the even odds as even as possible. But with this sustain coming in here, the Transcendence being used, Crawley cannot do too much, but now he's got his own sustain actually. Gunther getting that Transcendence out is going to be exactly what the defense needed here, as Kratos on this stall heroes are able to keep the point alive.
Through some miracle, Kratos is able to keep this alive, like you said. Now, there's many changes coming out from everyone. Now you see the defense on Hanzo Widow, the offense on running Ashe with CYY taking up the cow person mantle. But Maximus, again, finding the other Max in the lobby with a hook. and all of these players keep getting caught out by all these plays.
Ooh. Oh my god, the amplification matrix just shattered Firewolf. Gunther getting an elimination too, and oh my gosh, that split second when the amp matrix first comes down and you're kind of standing there just like caveman SpongeBob for a sec, where you're just like, oh, and then
absolutely dumbfounded.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the Zen 5 orb takes down the entire Orisa shield and some change, and your entire team's just wiped like that. And, you know, we should mention the start of this push, there was 4 minutes on the clock, and now Cratos has brought that time down to under 2 minutes in the bank. And so no matter how you spin it, there's going to be a near even time bank going into overtime, assuming we see Scion cap as 2 eliminations come out, and it seems like the snowball's starting to happen here.
Yeah, definitely. Maxwell does find the first pick onto the Baptiste, which is huge in these overtime fights. But again, you see the Hog come out, start to use that health bar, and the picks are coming out for the defense now. The Hammond comes out, gets the slam, and Maxwell does get caught out, but the Widow has a chance to stall here.
Yeah, Widow doing her best to just stall the point, but it will be all for naught as it does get captured here by Scion. A nice time bank going into overtime. Going to have 2 minutes and 23 seconds left to go, but Pulse, I want to mention that for those of you who may have not been with us earlier in the day, now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe Cratos had an overtime Junkertown in the first streamed match of the day where they only had a minute in the time bank and they sent the point all the way to the halfway mark of this third point here. Correct me if I'm wrong. It may have been the team they were playing against, but I do believe Cratos did that. So they have that ability in them. Now, are they able to have lightning strike twice? You know,
looking at the time bank, it actually might be the exact same time bank in that scenario. Like, I remember the match you're talking about, but I don't want to jinx it and say it was Cratos when I legitimately don't remember. But 1 minute versus like 1 minute and versus 2 minutes and like 23 seconds really rings a bell for me. So this might be a very similar situation. And if it is, then we're just cursed today, because we've seen some pretty interesting stuff, and having this happen twice in one day is just, like you said, lightning striking twice.
Yep. So, you know, if I'm gonna have to put any eggs in the basket, I'm gonna say that Scion is going to hold out on this defense here, and as they do start out with that halt combo coming in, not going to be able to land anything afterwards as the shield does come through there by Borkin. Default though, finding that opening elimination there on the Toxier is going to really be hard to come back from, as the defense has to give up a lot of territory here to make up for that.
And interestingly enough, this is the first time we've seen the May come out. CYY is on that May, but it is Maxwell finding the first blow onto Firewolf. That's a huge pick for the offense.
Pulse, that was the first, second, third, fourth, fifth blow all into Firewolf. That was a Hanzo's daydream right there. All storm arrow shots found into the body of that Orisa, just waiting to collect that ultimate charge. And now with Krawi dancing on the point, it's actually going to be the defense stabilizing themselves. That it looked like there was a little bit of confusion here on the offense, as Cratos didn't really have much room to capitalize.
No one can touch this.
No one can touch the point. The wall comes in. And nobody can get to the point there. And very nicely done by Scion, as they have 2 minutes and 23 seconds to only really have to take what looks like 70% of the first point, 68%, 68 meters. So not too much to take there for the offense here of Scion with 2.5 minutes in their bank.
After I saw Firewolf drop on the Orisa, it really felt like that was the scenario where, okay, we have point A now, right? But come back on the ball, you boop the entire team so far back, and I guess they were just the Giga Brain in the background. Like, yes, we know that we're going to be able to halt them in this choke and just wall them off so they can't touch, because it was almost too perfect to not be Prophecy.
Yep. And now it's going to have to be near perfection coming out from Cratos, as they have a tall task ahead of them, a tall drink of water they have to gulp down here, as they have 2.5 minutes. They have to play defense here, and they cannot give up this first point. Nearly 3/4 of it they have to protect. So it's going to be quite a difficult task for them, and they do have a few tools that are going to make it a little easier. You know, you have that Discord orb from Gunther. You have the Immortality Field from Micro. Maxwell and Default, both of them have been on point today, with Maxwell whipping out that Hanzo here. And they do have that pick potential pulse. And if you want to have a good defense, you want to have a good hold, makes it a lot easier when you start fights 6v5.
Yeah, and look at this, though. Kitty King walking out on that Ana, which isn't someone that we've seen as of late. So now quite a difference in amount of total healing coming out for this offense. But again, they only need a little bit past the hard choke on Junkertown A. One pick, and it's more or less over for the defense.
I mean, you talk about one pick, Pulse, you got what you ordered. Gunther going to be found out by that hog hook, and that's not what you want to be seeing as a Kratos fan. But Scion, with their Mei in tow, are perfectly set up to protect this battlefield, as Default and Crawley actually do find 2 eliminations. But with the offense evening that out, you have to remember that the spawn advantage is in favor of Scion, so any elimination they find is going to be a lot more valuable than any elimination found by Kratos, as Maximus does get one, and that nano boost pulse, that's going to be all that she wrote here, as that is going to be Scion Esports evening out the series at 1 apiece.
Yeah, people like to joke about Hog being just kind of a damage sponge, but when Hog's nano, that's effectively like 1,800 health just sitting on cart. So no one's really going to be able to remove that. Maximus just kind of spins around, does some Hog things, gets the picks, and cart just rolls in with plenty of time in the bank. Junkertown very obviously going over to Scion there. They just had the better ideas for their overtime. They thankfully didn't have to deal with that disconnect. Again, I don't think that made a huge impact in the final outcome of the game, but just a little bit more intelligent with the comps they're running and their win conditions and how they were approaching fights.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a lot more important in these escort maps comparatively to the King of the Hill map types that we saw with Lijiang Tower, to really have that cohesion and that teamwork locked down. Because when you have these escort maps, I touched on it briefly, you've touched on it, these spawns are so different depending on where you're playing on the map. And when you have a King of the Hill style map where we saw Kratos excel, it's not much about team strategy as it is just team deathmatch, you know? And so going here to Blizzard World, it'll be an opportunity for Scion to cement that their teamwork is to a higher level than Kratos. Whereas on the other hand, Kratos really has a chance to come back and say, you know what, we stumbled on Junkertown, but we found our footing here on Blizzard World. And, you know, that may be what they need to cement to really come in strong in this series against a tough opponent in Scion.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, you're kind of talking about it, how Junkertown looked like a team deathmatch almost. And I don't think I could have put it better, because you just saw a lot of really wonky stuff happening in between fights. There are multiple times where Borkin was just in the backline doing things on Orisa, and it worked out, I think, 1 out of the 3 or 4 times that we called it out.
I mean, I loved it the one time.
I loved it. I loved every second of it.
It was a great time when we saw it work.
Like, what are you going to do when the battle cow comes for you at night, right? Like, your entire team has to turn around and address it very quickly. But, I mean, most of the time, they were able to do that. Like, the timing of the Orisa showing up in your backline was a little bit ahead of the team. And, I mean, the one time we even saw the bongo get invested to it, and everyone was just like, okay, well, thanks for the bongo, right? So, things didn't quite go the way of Kratos, to put it lightly, in Junkertown. Despite some of the things that were happening, I think they held up very well, and it has good implications for Blizzard World. I am still, to say the least, pretty shocked at the lack of Sigma play that we've seen today across all matches, though. Like, especially in a map like Junkertown, where it's like you need to deal with snipers somehow. They're just kind of dealing with it by saying, you know what, we'll let you get picks. Hopefully we get picks just as fast with the Halt Hook, though. So going into Blizzard World, we're in a very weird situation where it's both these teams want to run Orisa Hog right now, and there's a very long hallway leading up to point A on Blizzard World. Like, you need extra tank support somehow.
Yeah, I mean, whether that come in the form of double shield, whether that come in the form of bringing out a diva. You know, we don't see diva very often, but a man can dream. You know, that DM does provide value occasionally. But yeah, you're right. That Sigma not really being present is not something we've seen very much at all since Sigma's come out in general, really. And not having that second shield available and that ultimate, another part, really put a lot of pressure onto the Hogs to give that pick value. And when you have Orisa shields you have to get through and the long range snipers you have to deal with. It really can be difficult. So kudos to both Krawi and Maximus finding value in those hogs on Junkertown. So now loading up here onto Blizzard World, you mentioned that there is some similarity, but then there is also a little bit of difference from Junkertown, especially on this second point. It feels the second point feels like it can be the high ground can be a little more easily maneuvered by the offense, in my opinion. A lot harder to control in general for a defense.
Yeah, and I do agree with that sentiment a lot. Also, point 2 in Blizzard World is probably one of the closest things in the game outside of Junkertown A to play like Junkertown A, and the snipers have very good sight lines. It's a very wide point in addition to being long, so instead of having very narrow sight lines, snipers can wrap around the entire fight and just take an angle you'd never expect to get an opening pick or open up with just an interesting crossfire that you've never seen before. But in order to get to B, we still need to deal with A, and right now the defense kind of recognizes that they don't want to be running Orisa Hog, which is interesting enough. Ryan Zarya is going to be the pick for both teams, and I gotta wonder if they just sort of set us up beforehand with how close some of these compositions have looked.
I mean, yeah, look at the support lines, mirror matchups coming in here with the Lucio Ana supports, and you know, it really feels like an ode to the glory days of Ana being the main support of choice, with Lucio watching her backside, keeping her safe, Ana keeping those tanks nice and healed up, and then all of a sudden you have a nano boost to use. But Borkin, oh, wow, the anti-grenade coming in massively there by Micro, going to be leading to Borkin getting a 2-piece, and just like that, Cratos just storms down the door, taking point A on Blizzard World incredibly quickly, not letting that Junkertown loss affect them at all.
No, and I was kind of watching their push, and it was very interesting because you noticed how staggered they were, how not fluid they were in their attack, and it was all just to set up Micros on a nade onto the front line, instantly wiping out the Rhine and the Lucio, and you just lose those fights. Now, after a very quick point A take, 3.5 minutes on the clock, the defense has gotten in position to try and do something about this, try and recontest, but it's Default and Maxwell just laying shots into the back of their head.
I mean, yes, look at that side taking Borkin down, setting the defense up beautifully here as there's going to be no main tank opposing them, and Maxwell just trying to get himself out of harm's way. But we will have both blades available, and something to point out is neither team going to have a defensive ultimate to keep those blades from going absolutely crazy. So it's going to be up to Sai and Maxwell to really outdo each other and see who can outblade the other. But Maxwell doesn't get the nano boost here as Micro throws that down, and Switch, actually, you know what, may have given it to him, but you know what? Sai only gets one elimination with his blade, outdone by his counterpart, and Krawi going to have to be picking up the pieces there, as well as offensively, Cratos doesn't look very phased here moving through Blizzard World.
No, and they have their next combo just waiting for them too. Nothing to do about it. Kitty King is making the swap over to Brig to try and stop the Tracer, try and stop the Genji in their backline, but Tracer's already set up with a Pulse Bomb. All they need is the Grav to combo with it.
Yeah, Default gonna have a lot of options available to him to use this Pulse Bomb as he goes in the backside, throws it, gets stuck there as the Graviton Surge is used. Default picking up one, Maxwell following up with another, but Sai trying his best to keep this hope alive here for the defense, as Maximus will get dropped very low as Sai does go down. And you know, it feels like we just got to see Scion Esports doing this kind of work to Cratos, and now Cratos has new life in them, asserting dominance over their counterparts here, with Maxwell feeling himself going alone into that backside, eating an anti-grenade to the face. But Pulse, it really feels like every single trade is just going the way of Cratos.
And now with the Nano Brig on point, just forcing them to clear off, the defense does manage to stabilize a little bit. Now it's the Genji Blade comes out, finds a couple kills, and actually is able to take down the Brig, but they fall to the McCree and capture point at the same time. 4 minutes, 50 seconds on the clock to take Blizz World C. This is absolutely absurd.
Ooh, nice little exit sleep coming in there by Switch, dropping Default. They were getting abused by the DPS duo there by Cratos, so a very much well-deserved sleep coming in by Switch. And looking ahead, we have, as you said, over 4 minutes in the time bank here for Cratos to get through this third point of Blizzard World, and they have the ultimates coming up to do it, with Micro coming up very closely to that nano boost. Default going to have another Tracer Pulse Bomb available with Krawi to combo there. So it's going to be up here to Scion to minimize the effect of these ultimates, and Maximus doing a great job there early on.
Yeah, and Nano Rai swinging into a grab. They're not going to find the kills very quickly, but they will find the first couple of the fight. But Sai is able to slam the door, get a 4K with Blade, and that's the hold they needed. That was very expensive, but it's the hold they needed.
My gosh, that was a beautiful Blade right there by Sai. Got 1 kill with a dash, and then 3 with a single slash right there. The Graviton Surge just keeping all of them in place, very nicely comboed there. And with only Firewolf having that Shatter available, Switch will be getting that pulse, or excuse me, that nano boost available to him. Default actually taking down Toxier there on the backside, getting a second elimination right there. And Default really just having a field day here, Pulse.
Yeah, Default just playing on these high grounds, getting so much damage in, but his micro to take down Sai as they're regrouping into point C. The card is starting to get into the castle throne room right now on Blizzard World, and 3 minutes left on the clock. This is a very, very good push. They don't have any ultimates to shut the door very quickly here, but Maxwell has a chance to get up to this Blade, unless Default just finds the pick on the McCree, which, you know, the McCree does get healed.
Oh, Maxwell finds the kill there onto the Reinhardt, and even though he does get Brig Bash, will be pulling out the Dragon Blade after feeling himself on that elimination. Will get stuck in a Graviton Surge after finding an elimination on his own, so may have pulled the trigger a little too soon on that ultimate. Sai, though, following suit, getting a little too aggressive there with a Shatter, responding after a Graviton Surge. So really just constant ultimate trades coming in back and forth, with Gunter finding a nice boop kill on the Switch, and with Firewolf taking down Krawi. It looked for almost a second that we would have Kratos coming out on top here, but that Blade, the respawns coming in here from Scion are going to seal the fate of this push here. And Pulse, look at that time bank. 2 minutes left on the clock. We came into this with 4.5.
Yeah, they're starting to get the time that they need. They need to drop this down as much as possible. Scion wants to stay alive in this map. Now, they did invest so many ults, but they are still at an advantage, believe it or not, with Kitty King being the only one with any sort of ultimate available right now. That rally is online, and fighting into a rally is very difficult, especially with a Tracer McCree.
Oh yeah, I mean, even though Maxwell has that burst potential, Default really will be feeling the effects of that rally as Kitty King trying to shore up the defenses of this push here, as Toxier will take down 1, and when that Reinhardt falls, it's like a house of cards getting blown over, ladies and gentlemen. It just tumbles, and with Sai following up with a kill there on the micro, that'll be a nice defense coming in yet again from Scion Esports. And with the time bank ticking down ever so slowly, we only have 2 fights left, maybe, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I would say 2.
Yeah, I'd say 2 fights left here for the offense, and that's considering that Kratos is able to decisively win or lose a fight here, because if they get staggered out, that minute goes by like that.
Yeah, and watch this ultimate economy too, because all of a sudden all the ultimates have come online for the offense. They have a grab, both grabs are dropped instantly, but the pulse bomb is the difference, and it is blocked by a Zarya bubble, but so much damage is on to the defense right now.
Yeah, Borkin going to be finding 1 elimination with Default and Krawi joining him as well. The Shatter making all the difference there, and no eliminations to be found from either Pulse Bomb here, as 35 seconds will tick down here. The point does get taken over by Kratos, but kudos over to Scion Esports, turning 4.5 minutes into only a 30-second time bank. Very nicely done there on the 3rd-point defense.
Yeah, and the 30-second time bank is a little bit of a double-edged sword from anyone observing this game, just because, well, you're happy you finished, but also you're in a position where if the other team finishes, even though Blizzard World Point C is hard to take, as long as the other team finishes, they will have another shot alongside you for overtime rounds.
You're right.
And with the way these two teams playing, I have no doubts that this will somehow get into overtime rounds, barring something just absolutely crazy on this. Like we just see the flank Orisa come back out again and pull a 4K or something to stop in overtime. But
you spoke it into existence. Now it's got to happen.
It's gotta now. I hope one of them is listening to Cass, because I don't think either main tank player wants to be on Orisa right now. But you know, if you plant the right idea in their head, they might do it.
You know, I'm thinking like the Orisa flank montage, like a Modern Warfare 2 Call of Duty montage, where you have like some really edgy emo music playing.
Yeah, and you put like a sepia filter over it.
You put like 3 sepia filters on it, and then as the drum hits and it gets to the climax of the song, you have like the screen flashing like dun 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 dun, and then the supercharger goes down, and all of a sudden you have all the eliminations coming out. Just, I mean, I can dream. I'll make that happen one day. I play Arisa, so you know what? If any montage makers are feeling a little bit 2009, hit my line, brother. As you know, we do have a game to talk about here, Pulse. We have a Reinhardt charging out of spawn, and
interestingly enough, the DPS are very different this round. Starting on the McCree Tracer, already default getting some value, forcing out cooldowns, forcing out positioning, but it's Toxier to find the first pick.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. Toxier and Maxwell trading out here. DPS for DPS, taking out both Reinhardts. So when neither team has a main tank available, is there really a disadvantage present? Well, you know what? Cratos decided to show Scion that they were the ones with the disadvantage. Pressing forward here, going to be shoring up the last bits of the eliminations. And take a look at the top of your screen. Just look at the discrepancy in ultimate charge. I mean, the only ones really leading the charge here for Scion is going to be Switch and Firewolf, but then the DPS from Cratos are just running the show with nearly both of them at their ultimates.
Yeah, and this Tracer default set up in a flank position, looking to go in the back one clip, maybe just get a pulse bomb and throw it on the Rhine, but default can very much dictate this fight.
Yeah, default's really been a nuisance dealing with for anyone in the backside, whether it's a squishy DPS or a support. But Firewolf asserting dominance over this tank line, going to force their hand here as Maxwell gets that nano boosted Dragon Blade to come out, but will not get any eliminations with it. Actually gets focused down, and honestly, when these ultimates come out, people are expecting it. And even though you get that nano boost to help you out, Maxwell, all these cooldowns, whether it's a stun from Toxier, whether it's a shield from Maximus, it's going to be used on that Genji, and it's going to stop that blade.
Maxwell just opts to drop the Genji entirely after that blade and go for the McCree duel. Not something that we've seen a lot in recent metas, but again, that pressure, that flashbang, the peel has been so good against the two flanking DPS because those are the ones that are taking all of these resources out, really.
Yeah, and it gives an opportunity for them to deal with that that Reaper that comes into play. But Psy not giving them a chance to even breathe, taking down two members, Toxier following up with another. And now you have to look time and time again at who is being most effective in these mirror matchups. And I want to bring up that tank line here. Firewolf and Maximus, for this entire offensive push, have really been setting the tone the entire time. I mean, I feel like Borkin has really just been reacting to everything, not having his way with any situation.
No, absolutely not. He's been getting pressured so much on these fights, and now this card's getting very close to C. We're gonna have to see the defense find their way in here and do something about it. But it's Psy with the nano looking for a Death Blossom.
Yeah, look at that. It's going to be a Death Blossom coming in with the nano boost. Flashbacks to Season 2, the Beyblade meta, let it rip, but Psy only finding one elimination with it. It will be enough, though, as they do manage to take the point, and my gosh, somehow Scion managed to outdo the time that Cratos had, taking the point at 4 minutes and 59 seconds. That's like 10 seconds more, I think, than Cratos had in their bank. So Scion definitely came to play here on Blizzard World.
Yeah, and Blizzard World Point C is really going to be the deciding factor between these two teams. It's going to be up to Cratos to do something about this, stop their time bank, start shaving off some seconds. But right now, the DPS are playing a little bit of a mystery heroes on this, and they're just not able to build up to ults.
Yeah, look at that. It's going to be a nano-boosted Reinhardt trying to establish some sort of hold here for the defense, and they are able to do just that. So it is an opportunity for what feels like the first time for Cratos to have a chance to breathe here and control the tempo of the game, as default does take down Psy and Firewolf. Even though he has that nano boost and uses a shatter, gets slept, gets anti-grenaded, and by the looks of it, it's not going to be alive very much longer. You know, I spoke a little too soon. That bubble beautifully timed right there, going to keep him out of harm's way for a little bit, but will get dropped there eventually, as default's just finding the marker with all these left clicks here on McCree, and gets that high noon ready to use next fight.
Yeah, Psy went for a very aggressive flank, got caught out, and just playing that whole fight 5v6 was very detrimental to the offense. They ended up feeding over quite a few ultimates to the defense here. Now Crawley looking very good with the grab online. Maxwell is going to have that blade this fight, and one nano blade, they have both the ultimates ready. They can stop this defense or this offense whenever.
Yeah, now Default has a Genji in his face, and Sai just playing games with that high noon. The deflect into dash combo, dropping Default before he had anything else to say about it. But Scion now has a Rhine just running into them with the nano boost, keeping him alive. Crawley going to benefit immensely from that, but you know what? The whole team really benefits at the end of the day, because Overwatch, that's a team game, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, not even needing the blade either. Maxwell smartly held onto that, only investing the nano boost onto Borkin to just swing. And that you saw how much free space that gave the defense. Now Maxwell's turn to shine with this blade coming up.
Yeah, look at that blade going to take down the Reinhardt, followed up by taking out Maximus. And, you know, it's just constant mirroring, not only in the hero picks, as we have identical mirror matchups across the board, but Pulse, it's mirroring in how these rounds are playing out. Both teams, decisive first points, decisive second points. Third point, the offense runs into a little bit of trouble, and with Cratos mounting a very strong defense here, we're going to have to see if it can hold up to a nano-boosted Dragon Blade, and with a beautifully timed beat by Gunther, it's going to do just that. Sai barely getting out with 6 HP, I think? Yes! Oh no, he gets dropped there by Maxwell! Oh, just on the verge of surviving right there. And now Gunther and co are going to be able to stave off this offense, and Pulse, this defense from Cratos is looking better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, again, down to 1 minute 42 seconds, so about 2, maybe 3 good fights really left in the bank for Scion Esports. They need to find something here. They don't want to get caught out and lose Blizzard World like this, but you got to be careful. There's been so many swaps in the last couple seconds, and now it's finally Toxie's turn to use an ultimate to find something, find some space with this team for the high noon. But there's so many options for the defense.
A beautiful Graviton Surge will get purpled, but the beat comes in time as High Noon decides to change the clocks and move him a little bit forward. 2 kills coming in there for both McCrees, but again, the defense from Kratos wins out. And now with only a minute on the clock, you said, Pulse, we may have a handful of fights left, 1 or 2, and with only 50 seconds left on the clock, I think we're only at 1 more fight. I mean, if this fight doesn't go in Scion's favor, they're going to have to come back with some staggering composition and some changes. So really, Scion need to win this fight right now if they want to keep this push going.
They need to force out Nanoblade, because that is the only chance of winning in overtime. They get the Nano, they do Graviton it, but the pin is good. Maximus does take himself out, though, just trying to get splash damage.
Yeah, Firewolf actually going to have that nano boost, keeping him alive, getting 2 kills. Toxier finding an elimination as well, and now the Squishies are just holding S, but they can't get out alive. We'll get cleaned up. Crawley, though, getting some closing eliminations there, going to find 2 to be exact, and now getting closer and closer to that Graviton Surge is going to be huge for Crawley, as Maximus is nowhere near it, and Gunther, very crucially, has that beat to keep Sai's blade from ending this round for the defense. It's going to be a big game of chess. It's going to be a big mental back and forth as the beat comes out early there, leaving it open for Sai, Pulse.
Yeah, and Sai has this blade to find some value with, but right now they're trying to chuck down the Reinhardt. Firewolf does live, Maximus does take out Borkin. Things are looking good for Scion.
Now, though, it may have been flipped on its head. The Graviton Surge come through. Gunther, Crawley, and an anti-grenade are going to have other thoughts about capturing this point, and the eliminations are coming in from Kratos. The Shatter comes in, and nobody's on the point from Scion. Kratos wins a barn burner of a Blizzard World.
Yeah, and what a slapback of a match that was. Just entire time, the DPS were trying to get the upper hand on each other with their switches, with trying to stay online, trying to get into the backlines. But generally, as soon as the Nanos came out, the Nanos and the Zaryas were the ones dictating the fights more than anything else. And a very close 2-3 for Kratos. But again, at this point in the night, after this long day of Overwatch, you will take what you can get. And they're at match point right now.
Exactly. And, you know, something to point out, and that's last fight right there. It's the real small differences that can really make or break your fight wins, especially at this high level of play. And I pointed out that we saw Gunther use that beat early, and it's always so risky using that defensive support ultimate aggressively, you know, a beat or a transcendence. And it looked very risky early on because that beat came out. They didn't get too much for it. But then when the blade came out, they dealt with it so beautifully. They had the Graviton Surge come up in time as well. And it really just looked like Cratos were so in control in that last fight. And they understood if I did X, Y would happen. And if they did Y, we would do Z. And it just followed a plan. It looked like that they acted out to perfection.
Yeah, and honestly, the way that Cratos has been playing, I think a little bit of the exhaustion might be coming into their favor too, because they've been really favoring a lot of, to put it lightly, stupid aggression. They've been, like you said, they use the sound barrier really early just so that Borkin can run in and start swinging, buying space for the McCree High Noon in the back. Or you see a lot of times where the supports are enabling the tanks to just blitz the other team before they can respond and hope that they win that way. But honestly, Krawi has been winning a lot of these fights, especially on point C, for their team, just because once you're a Zarya, you have that high energy, you stay alive, and you will find kills every single fight. Like, you put out so much damage. Graviton is so good. Your bubbles, as long as you're not playing too aggressive and enabling your other players on your team, your Genji, your Ryan, your Tracer, to go in and get aggressive for you so that it's kind of like a third tank almost with the bubble. And the sheer amount of value you put in just by staying alive and maintaining your bubbles and maintaining your charge is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that can't be understated enough, is as a tank, not only protecting your team, but staying alive and maximizing how long you can stay alive for. You want to be getting out of fights with as small HP pool as possible when you're playing the tank role. And if you can do that, you're doing your job right, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of Tank 101 here from Beanies. You're welcome.
Masterclass of tank.
Yeah, right. The masterclass of absurdly obvious tank information.
But again, like, the big things that we've been pointing out, that those differences in tank style, just in the way that Cratos has been using this sheer aggression, especially on Blizzard World, especially in Junkertown. It didn't really work out on Junkertown with the Orisa Hog combo, presumably because it was Orisa Hog combo playing into a double sniper, but they were playing very similarly on the previous two maps as well. And with Temple of Anubis coming out, it's one that I think it's one that I would at least hope for these teams to take a little bit more consideration into, because this isn't a map. 2CP in general isn't a map type that you can just blunt force aggression into to win. So Kratos is going to need to ask themselves some deep questions here. And one of them might be asking their tanks to unbind shift.
Or maybe what the meaning of life is. You don't know
or the meaning of life.
You don't know how deep the questions are going to get.
Things get surreal after 8 hours.
Yeah. I mean, once you start looking down the barrel of a 2CP map, you start asking some real ridiculous questions of yourself. I can attest to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think some of this might come down to Scion Esports wanting to address some of their comps as well. They have been going for a lot of mirrors in situations where we haven't really seen the comps that teams are wanting to mirror be at the highest level. So like we've pointed out, the sheer lack of Sigma is kind of surprising. On Blizzard World, we saw a lot of Ana Lucio, which is something that pairs well with Ryan Zarya, but it's not the ones that we've wanted to see them on. Like we've seen some really good things from Kitty King's Brig in shutting down the flankers. It's something that you might want to see a little bit more Bap Zen or Brig Zen even, just to help provide the support that the tanks need to stay up a lot of the time. But it really depends on how these two teams are addressing it. And I think a lot of it does come down to that just sheer amount of time spent online today and the exhaustion that comes along with that.
Yeah, that's something we can't understate enough, is these athletes have been playing for what, since 7 or 7:30 Eastern time. So that's been a long night of playing Overwatch. Was it Kratos members are on to their 14th game match of the night, and then Scion members are on their 13th match of the night. So both these teams have definitely been through it, to say the least. And now as they have to face Temple of Anubis here, we do have an interesting look coming out from both sides here. As I'll let you take over, Pulse. Have a field day with this one.
So right now we see what's colloquially referred to hog and ball torture. from both the offense and the defense, with the big difference being the Junkrat versus the Genji matchup here. Junkrat's gonna have some hard time finding some damage when the tanks are playing this far back, but it is Maximus the one that is trapped and just shelled before anything can really happen. The defense gets their first ultimates off the charge of that ball, and Sai's in a backline, but I don't know if he really wants to be here right now.
Oh, I mean, Firewolf shows exactly where he wants to be, taking down one. Switch gonna be following up, dropping another, and I'm sorry, hog and ball torture, man, are you kidding me?
Yeah, they do get the res off. The Junkrat instantly throws a cook mine into the deflect, and that is it. Sai gets 300 dash resets, cleans up this fight very quickly. The offense has every tool they need to win this, like, right now. They can absolutely snowball this. You window, you whole hog through the window, and all of a sudden you turn into the Turbo Bastion. And, like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, pulse bomb the hog who can live through it? Like, there's very few options available for the defense here. They need 12% more for a tire, but if they can get that, that's their only hope right now.
Exactly, and I mean, they do have the tire available, and always going to be a game changer. Default, though, he heard what you said, and he took that challenge, sticking Firewolf with a pulse grenade. Gonna be dropping him with a follow-up elimination with that left click. Gonna be nicely done there by the defense, as they do find a way to hold their ground with a very fast take coming in on point A. So 5 minutes on this second objective here of Temple of Anubis. It's a long time bank, but I mean, 2 CP, 5-minute hold, entirely possible.
Yeah, and especially in a match that you're playing with no shield. You do see the whole hog popped early to try and take down Borkin on this ball, and Borkin is eventually taken down, but the defensive window comes through, the tire comes through, but it's taken down by Sai. Sai has an opening here.
Yeah, you could say his Bork is worse than his bite, ladies and gentlemen, as he will get dropped right there, trying to keep his team alive. Switch gonna be taking Maxwell. 1, 2, 3 members all joining in the fun here of Scion Esports. Just everybody having an opportunity to join in the eliminations with what looks like a giant tetherball being played here on the volleyball court, ladies and gentlemen. You need a badge to be playing on this court, and none of you have the proper identification now, as the bodyguards and bouncers of Scion Esports just try and protect this point and keep everybody out of it, and they're doing a great job. Look at that pulse. No eliminations being given up right here. Fantastic target focus coming in, and fantastic mechanical skill coming in, getting these eliminations quickly.
Yeah, Borkin is able to stall out a little bit longer. The Doomfist comes in, finds a punch, but is taken down, and it is Crawley on the Rhine to pin out Toxier. The defense starts getting the picks they need, and at 90% built up towards point B, the defense is able to hold here.
Oh man, and when that first crack in the armor shows up here on your offense, when you're taking a point, all it takes is a single elimination, and then the defense spawns come in. Then you can't catch that damn Lucio. You can't catch that Tracer. And all of a sudden you have to think, oh man, we're at a numbers disadvantage. So very nicely done by Cratos to be able to find themselves, be able to compose themselves, and come back and keep this point on hold.
Yeah, we see Maxwell trying to show off some Doomfist diagonal punches there. Unable to quite get it in time. The offense is already outside the gate waiting to push. But Maxwell has stayed on this Doomfist the whole time, so that's a little bit different for the offense. They have to approach this being aware that they can just be one-shot punched out of nowhere.
Maxwell getting very close right there. Actually going to be dropped for his troubles, unfortunately, with a Tracer pulse actually coming out from default, taking down Kitty Kang. It feels extra dirty when a Brig gets dropped by a Tracer, because you know that Brig is there to deal with the Tracer.
Well, as of late, the Brig's been there to enable the Tracer more than anything, so can't be too mad a little bit, but again, the Pulse Bomb, you land it, then you get a free kill, especially in a game without a Zarya, without a Diva that can eat it, with no Sigma. There's so many options for these DPS to just run wild, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you speak about it. Look at that. Toxier taking down Borkin, doing what Tracer does best, holding left click in the beefy targets. The Maxwell getting the nano boost right there, going to be having to put this to use, as Doomfist will be able to pump out a lot of damage. I mean, look at that, almost one-shotting a hog right there. And even though a whole hog will be coming out, I believe, oh no, never mind, almost coming out there. Not going to be done just yet. Maxwell trying his best, but will get dropped, and you know, it just feels like it's the same dance, different tune here. Is the offense is getting to push in, but they don't have all the numbers right now. They don't have the ultimates available, and it's just delaying their time longer and longer, as we do see, you know, a disjointed push coming here by the looks of it, thanks to this Mei wall.
Yeah, they're trying to do something with this, but the Mei's on the defense now is just freezing everyone. There are no shields to block it. Toxier is finding picks on this Tracer, but it's not fast enough, and enough of Toxier's team is dropping in between those picks. So Micro is able to pick up 2 on Brig and stabilize for the defense. Now down to 1 minute after a lightning point A round and a very long fight that's been going on for the past 2 minutes or more.
Yeah.
This is going to be the first regroup from the offense. They should have had this a while ago.
Pulse, it feels like we're watching a comp game at this point, because these regroups need to be coming in a lot sooner. Default able to finish off Toxier there, and finally we have an opportunity to breathe as both teams will come to a stalemate here with 40 seconds on the clock. It's going to be final fight territory here, and with the few ultimates going to be available to the offense, it's going to be a tall task for Scion Esports to break through this wall here, literally, that can be put up by Maxwell and metaphorically set up by the team.
Yeah, this is the first reset. Maximus goes in with the Hammond mines, but the Blizzard's going to be there to clear him, but does find Borkin.
Yeah, not going to get any eliminations off that. The Blizzard just used to clear mines and not going to be paying much value for that ultimate as a returning Whole Hog comes out. Both ultimates to be used by respective Hog players, but Firewolf and Psy going to be finding the first return on investment here for their troubles, and Toxier also going to get elimination there, and it finally feels like Scion have control at this point. They're going to be taking point B in a matter of moments, as they just need to deal with that damn Lucio. You can never catch him when you need to. It's like a fly with a broken fly swatter. You can just never hit him in the right spot.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb comes out, doesn't find anything, but it's Psy's Blade here to shut down this fight. Does find basically everyone else left on point, and now it's overtime respawns for the defense. It's been for a while, but now you really start to see the effects. They just don't have bodies to throw on point anymore.
Yeah, it's really just trying to stay alive as best you can. I mean, yeah, look how fast that timer, or excuse me, the point was captured right there in overtime, and finally we do have Scion taking the second point on Temple of Anubis. But Pulse, what was the time bank they started with? 5.5 minutes going into that second point, and it took all of those minutes and some stoppage time to really make that magic happen.
Yeah, and I honestly can't say anything else about it other than it's the comp. Like, you don't go into a Hammond and Roadhog composition without thinking that you're gonna lose someone on the attack, right? Like, there's no shield, you have the peel, you have the boop to cause some chaos, but like there's very little peel for your actual backline. And
yep,
if you're playing Trace or Genji, you don't really have a whole lot going on in your backline, but you need to keep your supports up. So it's falling entirely onto the Brig and Baptist to be self-sufficient. And you get into so many scenarios where it's just like you get one pick on either of those heroes, and they are relatively tanky and hard to kill for supports, but if you find a pick on either of them, that's just fight over, push dead for the offense. And you saw it. We got into a 3+ minute long brawl just because they got the Brig out early and they wanted to keep forcing it. They wanted to keep trying to find the picks. This was the fight. They were going to have it, but the stalls were good and respawns for attackers were just so bad on point B of control points. They wasted a lot of time, but they did finish it. And now it's going to be up to Cratos. If they want to win right here, shut this down right now, they're going to be relying on the same composition with the exception of the Reaper. So now they're going to have a Reaper on their side to try and help chunk down the ball and the Hog.
Oh my god, speaking of that Hog getting chunked down, Firewolf gets hooked into that tiny room, and that's not where you want to be. He gets dropped almost instantly, even through that immortality kill, which was thrown out there just a little bit too late. Maxwell, ooh, playing with fire right there, almost gets dropped, but we'll be able to use that Wraith form to get out of harm's way. And with 2 members eliminated here from the defense, Scion Esports is going to have to send themselves back to their point B and try and mimic what we just saw Cratos do.
Yeah, and again, this is the exact same setup. Maxwell going for cheeky Reaper taunt just to solidify the position, but hello, Maximus, what are you doing at point A spawn? Just letting Maxwell charge up the next Death Blossom sitting around 50%, and 6 minutes on the clock now for Cratos. They can basically run the show here. They can try and get this, but we want to see Scion try and hold for under a minute.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of time they have to get through right now, as 5 minutes and 40 seconds are on the clock. Default, though, is going to be the one who gets the time in the spotlight. Krawigo takes it away with Psy, getting dropped early on thanks to Krawi's beautiful hog play. Default, though, with the pulse bomb available, going to try and chuck it. Cannot land the fadeaway onto the Brig. We'll have to rely on that left click. Maxwell, though, finding more value off of that ultimate. Default following it up with some eliminations. And you know what, Pulse? It may have looked pretty from the side of Scion, but Cratos makes it look even prettier. And they're going to be taking this point in convincing fashion. And we have either a series finale or we have ourselves a tie.
Yeah. If this is a tie, then it will be the miracle tie, because 5 minutes on Anubis to hold a push that you could not hold on the initial round for more than a minute and a half is absurd. And it'd be very wonderful to see it happen and to see this miracle occur in real time. I don't know if Scion has fuel in the tank for it today, though. It's just been such a long day, and with some of the degeneracy that we've seen coming out between these compositions, I think both these teams are ready to be done for the night.
Yeah, but you know, Scion really they have a chance to make some magic happen. It's been done before. Teams have full held first point Anubis, so why not today?
And I do like what I'm seeing too.
Them?
Like the changes are coming out. Like you see Toxie on the Widow, which not too surprising, but we see the Echo come out, which is the big one I'm looking at. Yeah, especially in this series. It's the first Echo we've seen in the series. I think there's been 2 maps where a team has run Echo on other points tonight, because so many teams have just been running Genji, and Echo doesn't do super well in that matchup. But this is the first Echo that we've really seen. Maximus, very late pick onto the ball, will not be in this first fight, but we see Kitty King setting up for that flank Moira.
Yeah, watch out. You thought that flank Orisa was good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, coming this summer, we have the flank. Never mind. Moira had to fade away. She got found out
the Widow
a little too quickly, but they find Maxwell. Oh my God, it's working. I believe in this dream, Pulse. And Psy gets the elimination. All right. I'm signing up for the Scion School of Believing, ladies and gentlemen, because they are going to make this full hold happen. Even with Default and Gunther getting these 2 eliminations coming in on the later stages of the fight, it really just feels like closing kills, because the fight's coming to an end right now, and it's going in the favor of our defense.
Yeah, and look at these, like, just these weird angles that you never see in Overwatch. Both hooks are missed early on, but these teams are just kind of resetting. Kitty King does need to not die on Moira right now. I was getting very scary for a little bit. And what's going on point B?
I have no idea, but Psy comes out on top of that fight that happens on the other side of the map. Switch playing a little bit of Soldier 76 here, going for a possible elimination. Gets found out by Default's Tracer. Now going to have to battle against a true DPS hero, one of which is going to win that duel, come out on top, get the recall down. But look at this. On the point, Scion is winning out the fight. They had to commit that whole hog. They had to commit Psy's Echo ultimate, but nonetheless they do hold out the fight, and they are still defending with 3.5 minutes in the time bank.
Yeah, and Default's just going on Tracer's bizarre adventure over in the corner, trying to build up to a pulse bomb to try and find something with this, but is just getting pressured out by Maximus's Hammond, just rolling around, causing chaos. Kitty King once again on the Moira flank, almost gets taken down early, but gets the Coalescence out.
And the Coalescence comes out, no pulse bomb stick comes through. Maximus and Kitty Ring going to be finding the opening eliminations of this fight. And yet again, Cratos is going down to the defense of Scion. So, I mean, Pulse, it's happening. The stepping stones are there.
I think we need caster cams right now on the side, just so you can see the emotions Beanies and I are going through watching this. There have been some faces made on this cast, but again, the Hammond just in the backline, Borkin trying to find that angle, but Crawley opens this up for this team by finding the flank Moira.
Losing the flank Moira is going to be the end of it all. How can you survive without that crucial DPS hero on your team? Well, Maximus is trying his best to fill that void. Getting 1 elimination right there is going to be Maximus, but does pay for it with his own life. A nice hooked onto the jumping switch, bringing him back down to earth and telling everybody that Cratos is here to stay, coming out on top in this series over Scion Esports. 3, 2, 1, and we'll be seeing you in the grand finals.
And that is not the series that I expected, not the series that I knew I wanted, but absolutely the only way to end this night, because I don't know what I watched. It was Overwatch, I'm pretty sure, but boy, was it entertaining.
I mean, I loved watching this entire Anubis map. I mean, that even though we talked about that fight that just seemingly never ended on the Scion's offense, it was enjoyable to watch nonetheless, because that kind of fight breeds excitement and really close moments that you barely win out on, because that's really where it comes from, just narrowly winning out certain engages that give you that glimmer of hope that you can keep the fight going.
Yeah, and that like we said, the long fights on B really caused the downfall for Scion. But when you're playing a composition that includes Genji, Tracer, Ball, and Hog, I don't know what you're playing for at that point other than just picks with a question mark. So eventually time banks were lost on B, but it was in fact Kratos that actually set themselves up much better, take Anubis, take the series, and just played the weird stuff a little bit better overall tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the weird stuff is definitely an understatement for some of the things we saw tonight. But it's time for us to begin wrapping up this beautiful gift that we call Trial of Champions night number 2. And we are going to start that with a brief break, which will lead into an interview with one of the winning members of Cratos, as we will have not only the main tank, but the legend himself, Borkin, coming in to talk to us. So don't go anywhere, because after this break, we'll be bringing you that action. Welcome back, everybody, to the Trial of Champions. It's been a long night. We've had a lot of nonstop action, some of which we have to go back and digest to fully understand the high IQ of it. But to wrap up this night, it's Beanies joined alongside Pulse, and we're bringing you one member of the winning team, Cratos, as we have their main tank, Borkin, coming in to join us. Borkin, how you feeling now, buddy?
I'm feeling a bit tired, I'm a little out of it.
A long day of competing, and not only competing, but having lots of intense matches coming your way. 2 separate 5-game series, and then this 4-game series to wrap it all up. And I want to start talking about that first map on Lijiang Tower, because when we saw you guys come out on Lijiang Tower, it looked like you guys kind of stumbled out of the gates on that first night market map. But by the time the end of the map came around, when you got to gardens, you really seemed to have set yourselves up for success. What changed throughout that map that really swung the momentum from them to you?
In all honesty, our flex DPS kind of got off Widow, and it was just kind of like smooth sailing from there. But I'm gonna be real with you. I don't really remember the map you're talking about. It's been such a long day, but I'm pretty sure what you described right there is 100% true. It was good. It was good.
Understandable. It's been a long one for you, buddy. So we'll try and make this short and sweet for you. But yeah, leading into my next question, I guess, is one of the things that we talked about on broadcast and Pulse brought up a lot is the lack of Sigma we saw in this series. Can you talk to us about why you guys didn't feel like you should be running that Sigma and why you think both teams weren't running it?
Honestly, we're just innovators. In all honesty, like there's nothing more to it. We found a better meta. The hog and ball just far more superior. We've been working with our coach Natter, very strong coach, and he just taught us the way. He's shown us the light.
I can't really argue with it after what we saw in Anubis, so I'll take your word for it for now.
Thank you.
And yeah, I guess as we move along, just shoring up this interview, want to get your thoughts on, I guess, how you played in your team as a whole. I mean, you guys came into today, really dominated your way, or I don't want to say dominated your way through the whole bracket, but towards the layer stages, really dominated. And I want to know, who do you think is your MVP so far throughout this tournament on Kratos?
On Cratos, that's hard. Probably the flexibility of one of our DPS. They kind of jumped around. Our Widow was turning to our Genji player. Our Genji player was on Widow. It was just crazy.
Yeah,
Like they were all over
at one point too.
Oh my, yeah, for real. The flexibility, the range on those two players, just nuts.
Soprano to alto and everywhere in between. You love to hear it. Well, Borkin, it's been a long day. If Pulse doesn't have anything else,
no, I think we'll let everyone get some sleep tonight, just because
it's been a long.
It's not over. You still have a match tomorrow, so good luck with that. But
yeah, exactly. You guys,
you gave us a very entertaining match to watch, and I don't think there's a better way to close out the night.
Of course. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on with us, and everyone at home, thank you for watching. You can see now that we have a lot of intense action in the Trial of Champions tournament, and it only gets even more intense tomorrow, because we are going to be bringing you the final stages of our losers bracket, and we will get to see who is going to face Kratos in our finals matchup. So you don't want to miss any of that action. It's coming your way again tomorrow evening. So get right back here to Elo Hell Esports to catch all the action. I've been Beanies. That's been Pulse. We'll see you later.